what my sound preferences are. I like bass. And if it can have quantity and quality, yeah, I'm rocking it. Especially mid bass. I like the slam over the sub bass rumble. I like my mids super clean. Not a big fan of overly colored, overly thick, overly warm mids. Not a big fan of that. And highs that are very sweet and seem to be able to keep up without ever being overbearing or in your face. So
that don't matter these days, huh? I got a strong addiction. Uncle tried to tell me too grown to listen. Itching for a nut, I'm prone to fix it. Scrolling through my phone, I'm on a mission. Sex, do it right. Sex, through the night. Sex, do it right. Sex, through the night. Looking out my window, it's some girls outside. So I grabbed my keys, I told her get in my ride. Looking for that good sex, cause it's been a long time. She get wet, I'm tryna get on her slide. Sex, do it right. Sex, through the night. Sex, do it right. Sex, through the night. Good sex, good sex. 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 Good sex, good sex.
hello. Welcome back. I'm feeling pretty blessed. My head amp 6, which I use for my testing and burn-in, is full. So lots of stuff coming up, but today I wanted to share this. Now, if you haven't watched any of my videos, a little bit of a spoiler, XENNS MANGIRD Up is still today, even though they don't make it anymore, one of my favorite IEMs. If you can find a used one, pick it up. If you like some of the things that I like. And if you've watched the beginning part of my video, I do tell you what I like. I like and for my music as well. So no surprises there. Let's just jump into this IEM. XENNS, you did better than the up and the tops for when it comes to doing packaging. And we'll talk about its tuning as well. I mean, I love this. Well done. In the sea of chi-fi out there, there's not a lot of differential. And stuff like this gets my juices flowing. I mean, this is $359, so it's not terrible in its pricing. Here's your lit accessories, funky case. Love that little case. The cable that it comes with, beautiful, custom made, modular. It reminds me of the Nice HCK Blue Luna, but it is different. And it's a little bit shinier, tangly free, modular with the smaller ends. Very nicely done. The IEMs themselves also very, very nice. There is a little vent with a mesh grill on the side. The shells themselves are that semi-custom, but they're metal, not resin. And in that black, they're a bit shiny, but not fingerprint magnets. The nozzle, stainless steel, got a nice lip on it. Here I'm using, what am I using? I'm using DAVINCI wide bore tips, and we'll talk about tips. Oh my God. The top shells are super pretty. They really are. I got pictures. It'll do more of a justice. They got a little sparkly thing and bluey green. It says Manguard on one side, on both sides. It's a really pretty IM. Very comfortable. Excellently executed. Well done in presentation, in fitment for me. Again, I have medium, large ears with proper tips. They go in. They're very comfortable. These aren't too heavy. They do have a little bit of weight to them, but I don't mind. Let's talk about this configuration. Dual 8 biocellulose dynamic drivers used for the low end. And then inside there's 6 BAs in sets. 13 ohms resistance at 104 dB sensitivity means they are pretty easy to drive. So what they do say for the balanced armatures is genuine Knowles RAD 33518, 2 RAF 32873s, and a single RDB 34834 composite B balanced armature. There you go. Now, let's talk about the sound. That's the most important thing that you and I want to know. It's an unoffensive tuning, 20 to 20. Absolutely smooth, it's detailed, it's warmish, or has warmish undertones, without a thick sound, and that is the tuning. Bass strikes a nice balance of low frequency energy and mid bass with a quite slower decay, and I think again that's the chosen drivers using those biocellulose drivers. They tend to be more organic and deeper sounding, but not the speedy of say a beryllium coated driver. So I would have liked to see a bit more attack in the bass, but the biocomposite drivers actually do a pretty good job here. The bass reminds me of actually the Shanling dual 6mm biodynamic drivers that I like very, very much. And there is no information on how these two drivers are configured, but again, I have a sneaky suspicion that they are in that face-to-face fake isobaric configuration with a sound tube coming out. That's how they sound to me as well. Though if that is the configuration, it's probably one of the best implementations of that I have heard to this date. And I'll go more into the bass in my impressions here. Let's talk about those mids. The mids for me, 80% of all your music is coming from the mid-range. And for me, it's a mixed bag of warmer lower mids and drier, airier upper mids. And to my ears, they sound a bit north of neutral with a thinner note weight. And the way, and go back into the bass just for a second, the way and so many of these IMs are doing this sub-focused bass, where they're trying to clean up the mid-range. And in this case, and here's a graph of the T Pros, you can see that the bass shelf ends, 150 hertz, and then the mid-range is kind of flat across the board to 1,000 hertz, and there it actually is a bit scooped before it goes into the pin again. And this is the mids, and so they do this to clean up the mid-range, and yes, you do get some very, very clean mid-range. But in my ears, the mids can sound sometimes a bit recessed and a bit hollow on certain songs, certain tracks. And what I found in my experience with the T Pros, my first experience with the T Pros was I thought it sounded like shit, because I had I had my favorite ear tips, my AFUL H570s on, and to enhance some vocals, because I don't know why, I just threw them on. I use them. I like those tips. They sound horrible on this IM. Absolutely. It did something wackadoo to the mids, and I hated it, and the bass too. And then I listened to these things for the first couple listens, and then I put them away and listened to something else, and I went, wow, if those things sound that bad, I don't really want to review these things. I persisted, did my due diligence, and you got to ear tip roll. That's your first. Second is sources, so important. So a lot of my impressions are done, just to go over that as well. Actually, let's get to that after I talk about the rest of the tuning here. The treble is nice, and it's detailed, and it's extended, and it's airy, and I don't have too much issues with the top end. Listening to some track impressions, when I'm a violin fan as well, strings I do like. Yes, I'm a big 90s rock fan as well, right? Old school stuff. I listen to a variety of stuff. I'm a big jazz fan. The top end was unoffensive. I do like the top end. No issues whatsoever. So I want to do a couple comparisons to, again, back to that XENNS Up. I love that tuning of that. I love the beryllium driver slam and the mid bass. And I'm going to punch that up here. So for me, the ups had a masterful tuning. They really did. They added in a good amount of bass, but a nice portion of that was also in the mid bass, where it carried it with enough speed to not make the mids bloated at all, and bleed into the lower mids. Same as the Pinagain, it was all really well done. And here's a graph, just being a measures debater just for a second. So you can see on this graph, and I'm looking over at my other screen, dude, just as a reference. They scooped out that harmonish kind of tuning where the lower mids are scooped, lower bass is scooped out a bit, cut out some of that mid bass to try and clean up the bottom end, and it has a very flat mid-range, and then again where it gets to 100, it doesn't really have a lot of gain until it gets to 1.5 1500 hertz, where then it has the steeper climb up into that, and then it levels off and goes flat. Well, the ups didn't. They just kind of had a lesser gain in there, and it was overall more extended, and in the top end as well. So giving you some listening impressions between the two, if you're familiar with the up, this is what the two sounded in comparison to one another. So first of all, you notice the stage on the up. It's wider. It has more expansive stage. It has definitely the harder hitting bass. And it is in the lower mids, it is warmer, it is thicker. That lends itself to nicer cellos, nicer kicks, harder hitting bass. That's real world. There's information there in music, a lot of it, especially in piano and stuff like that, and guitars. And don't forget, this is a tribrid where it has ESTs helping out in the top end. And those really do lend itself to the treble finishing the notes, the trailing edges of the notes. It's quite nice. There's a little bit of special sauce that goes on with ESTs, and I've always really liked the way the ups implemented those as well. So The Road to Hell, Part 2, Chris Rea. The T Pros, in this case, almost matches the impact and texture of the ups, which was a bit surprising. Vocals sound more forward and not as organic sounding, but very good. Not as warm as the ups. to be expected. And the ESTs on the ups, again, do lend itself to a more polished top end, nicer detail retrieval, and hi-hat cymbal strikes on the up over top of the Ts. Now, I'm comparing a $700 IM to one that's half its price, but that's what you're getting. And I'm really looking forward to the Up Mark II, which is, I heard, in the works and coming. Next track, Loser Like Me, Sixpence None the Richer. The T Pros are the winner in this one for a less warm, less thick female vocals. Detail retrieval and technicalities, though, still go to the up. Save Me by the Tea Party. T Pro does have great vocals. The drums do sound good. But in comparison, the Up's vocals just sound more natural, more nuanced as instrumental. The bass has more texture and filled out more as well in listening A-B to those two IMs. For me, the Up is a clear upgrade to the T's with their new tuning. And let's throw something closer to its price range in here. Let's compare now Timmy's $299 DaVinci. And here I'm using the same tips, Divinis wideboard tips. The DaVinci, and I use those tips just so you know, to for me, what they do is they cut out some of the sub bass, tighten up the impact of the mid bass. So I really like those tips, and that's what they do for me. They're kind of my sub bass fixer. The DaVinci has thicker lower mids and sounds warmer. I prefer the clarity and the resolution of the T's over the DaVinci's. I also like the bass of the T's more. It just actually feels more resolving over that combination of the two dynamic drivers in the DaVinci. In some track impressions, Faz Gostolo from Madonna. The T's hit low and has some great punch, great energy for vocals, and a nice sparkle up top, and a really unoffensive level of highs. In the DaVinci has the same lower bass decay, but not as much punch. Vocals on this track, again, go to T's, sounding more real, more correct. In comparison, the DaVinci has almost a bit of a nasally timbre, but I like how the DaVinci adds in more weight to the vocals for my preferences, a little bit more fill, you might say. The T's are probably the more balanced, the better all-rounder in comparison of the two. But for my tastes, I would probably pick up the DaVinci more. I like the thicker lower mids. If I had no warmer sources, but on a warmer source, it would actually be an easy win for the T Pro. So source dependent on this one as well. Now, just talking about sources for a second, I went the full gamut with the Ibasso DX180, my Ibasso DC Elite, fantastic, clean, uncolored. And where I went to my final impressions is my desktop stack. So the Geshelli J3 Pro that I have here on loan and testing, with the Sparco's op amps inside it. Now this is an 8km DAC, the 4499, and it's out to my topping A90D. It is maybe a hint of warmth, but very resolving, very clean, and uncolored. So nothing is pushed forward, backwards. The bass, mids, and treble are all very neutral. And again, just maybe a hint of warmth that played into most of these IMs that I'm evaluating in comparison. So I'm going to throw another one out here, one you haven't heard any impressions from yet, but this is the Performer 7. You see it advertised as $5+ +2, but it's actually a 1. It's actually a 2 plus 4 plus 1. So that makes any sense. But that does play a part. So the two dynamic drivers are not in a face-to-face. They're in a concentric one where they play independently, and there's not going to be any deconstructive interference between the two. So that's how it's configured. 4 BAs for the mids and highs, and then for the upper highs and ultra highs, they use a microplanar. And here's the difference between these two in some track compression. So here I'm using the JVC Spiral Dot FX10 tips on the at full. Wagging Tongue by Depeche Mode, P7, has a faster, tighter bass. I'm going to pull up a graph and show you that as well. This is going to play a big part. The P7 has a faster, tighter bass, a nicer mid-range, overall clarity-wise and tonality-wise. The T's in the bass-wise do play a little bit deeper, though. Motorcycle Driver by some 6-string guitar by Joe Satriani. The P7 kills this track over the T's. The tonality of Joe's guitar, it was a huge difference. And at volumes, the T's BA treble gets a bit splashy. The P7 has more energy, but better tonality to the hi-hats and cymbal crashes. And of course, the guitar sounded more realistic. The P7 is, out of the two, definitely the more resolving in this track. You can hear more of the finger slides. Mids are more natural sounding for the guitar. The highs are so much better done on the AFUL. Stage is also a big difference between these two. Not just wider, but more 3D on the P7. The P7 sounds just fuller in the mids, more well-rounded and balanced. And if you look at again, being a measures debater, just look at this graph for a second, just to help you out and understand what you're seeing on the graph is actually translated to your ears as well. Now here you can see that the AFUL P7 does have lower bass shelf, lower energy in the bass, but there is more energy into the mid bass. So that actually translates to more bass that you actually hear, because it isn't that sub bass focus scooped out stuff. And so when it comes to the lower mids, there's more information there. It's not that ruler flat kind of leveled out mids. And again, so much of that energy is in the mids. And now when it comes to, let's talk about the mids, because this is the big difference between these two sets. Well, AFUL loves to do that 12.5 or 1200 hertz kind of little bump in the pinna rise. And overall, there is less energy in the pinna gain, where the T's climb up really steep, where this one has more energy, more fill, and that does translate into more information in a more natural sounding way. I wrote in my preliminary evaluation of these, when I was doing a hardcore comparison between the two, I said I'm actually doing my T Pro evaluation, and decided to throw in the AFUL P7 into this ring. So the T Pros, wow, yeah, I said it's a lovely IM, but fresh out of the package, this is before I burned in the P7, has more good things going for it. Nicer bass, doesn't go as low as the T's, but there's more texture and more impact out of the P7. The mids are more filled out, where the T's can sound a bit thin, and they sound just north of neutral on the drier, airier side. The P7 sounds fuller. It sounds complete. It sounds like when the singers are singing into the microphone, not only can you hear more nuanced in their vocal tonality and the wavering of their vocal cords, but it just sounds more natural. Where the T Pros just have a bit of an odd sound to them in the mid-range, especially when it comes to vocals. And if you're a big vocal fan like me, that's noticeable when you're critically listening. Instruments also sound more natural on the P7. You can get that listening to clarinet, listening to triangle, ding, cymbals, everything. They really just came through more on the P7 in comparison. You can get more air and separation as well, and that translates also to detail retrieval as well on the P7 with a bigger, more open stage, and staging placement as well, where the Ts are wide, but they do kind of just go into your headspace, where the P7 had much more of a 3D placement in the bass all the way up to instrumental, where you could layer the instrumental on a 3D stage better as well. In my opinion, without the burn-in, I said the P7 is the better of the two IMs, and now as I put more hours and time into the P7, those impressions only got more cemented in going back and forth. So again, same source chain as well. So if I were to do a couple track impressions, again, using and in comparison to those two IMs, the P7 and the T's Pro, Pedir à tu Corazon by the Gypsy Kings. The T's stage is just front and center. Mids are drier, not as natural sounding, especially noticeable in the vocal tonality. In this song, and most definitely when it comes to the timbre of the instruments and the guitar, you could really hear a difference between the two IMs. The T Pros and the P7 really do trade blows, but only on some songs. If you prefer a more laid-back presentation and a more relaxed top end, you would go for the T's. If you are a stage hound like me, and you like your mid-bass slam and a more detailed top end for strings like I do, I would pick the P7 all the way. So just to conclude here, T's for me are a truly wonderful IM. The whole fit, finish, package, everything. Though it did take some time for me to warm up to this set with some source rolling, some tip rolling to get me to here. When I put it on some other resolving super analytical sources like the Con Max and the DC Elite, this is one of these IMs that I find doesn't respond well to two analytical sources. It was a case of too much of a good thing is not a good thing in this case. And that was not a great pairing. A warmer source or a neutral source, maybe a hint of warmth would be a better pairing for the T Pros if you were thinking about picking them up. But now that I dialed in the T Pros as much as possible for me, I just can't help feeling like I'm not completely taken with the T Pros. The way it renders vocals for me and overall tonality, especially after the P7 compare, it just sounds like something is a bit off. And then I did another session yesterday with the DC Elite. And again, I get the overall impression that the mids are just missing something. There's some information missing there. And I gotta say, it's probably because of that mids in that 1K to 2K area. They're just scooped out a bit too much. Some of the songs sound nasally, thin, dry. And then you get the backup of that sub-bassed focused low end. Not my favorite. On warmer sources, I feel, again, better on the Ts. It kind of masks the mid-range tonality a bit by adding in some thickness, but that also thickens up the bottom end, and the Ts don't really need that. So I think overall the Ts are a great set. But it misses the mark as an all-rounder, and this tuning will not be for everyone. With this sub-based focused kind of relaxed treble, not relaxed so much as undefined, I think, how I would describe it more than anything else. That's more of a niche tuning out there. So, like I said, a lot of things going right for this set, and if you're not super critically listening to the set and you pick it up, it's a wonderful IM to just kick back and relax. It's completely unoffensive, does a lot of things right, but I'll tell you quite honestly, I'm getting really tired of these sub-based focused IMs, like the T Pros, like the Zigats, that don't put a lot of energy into the lower bass, the mid bass. And I know they're trying to scoop out and clean out that mid range, but I'm so over it. And when you elevate the sub bass in like that, and you scoop out the mids, and you're trying to clean up the mids, I think there's another element that seems to go missing in there, and that's more of the musicality to it. The T Pros are wonderful. If you know what you're getting into and you like that particular kind of tuning. So, but if you already have something like this, the question is, do you need a T Pros? I'm personally waiting for the up twos. I think hopefully that'll go along the lines of the original and give me some more of that mid bass, give me some more of that speediness and the slam. That's what I'm looking for, and maybe some more EST extension. That would be super nice. That's it for this one. Hope I've shared enough to help you out with my impressions, to give you an idea of what the T Pros sounded like. And I will see you on the flip side on the next one.